Procrastination is often misunderstood. People think it's laziness, lack of discipline, or poor time management. But if you've ever delayed something that truly mattered to you, a goal, a decision, a conversation, a step forward, you know the truth feels different. You cared and still didn't act. That's because procrastination is rarely about not wanting to do something. More often, it's about not wanting to feel something. When you face a meaningful task, it carries emotional weight, uncertainty, pressure, fear of failure, fear of not being good enough, fear that the outcome might define you. Your brain doesn't just see the task, it simulates emotional consequences. And if those predicted feelings feel heavy, the nervous system resists. So avoidance appears. Not as a conscious decision, but as a protective shift. Attention moves towards something easier, lighter, immediately rewarding. You check your phone, you clean, you plan instead of start. You research instead of act. On the surface, it looks irrational. Internally, it reduces anticipated discomfort. This is why procrastination often happens most with things that matter most. Low-stakes tasks feel neutral. High-stakes tasks feel threatening. The brain is wired to minimize threat first, progress second. Perfectionism amplifies this loop. When you believe your action must be good or impressive, the emotional cost of starting rises. Beginning imperfectly feels unsafe. So the mind waits for readiness, more clarity, more energy, more confidence. But readiness is often an illusion created by avoidance. Identity also gets involved. Important efforts tied to self-worth. If this fails, what does it say about me? The task stops being just a task, it becomes evaluation. And evaluation activates threat systems. Delay becomes self-protection. There's also temporal distance. The brain discounts future consequences compared to present comfort. Starting now feels costly. Delaying feels relieving. Even when you know delay creates stress later, the nervous system prefers relief now. Over time, procrastination creates guilt. You know you're delaying. You judge yourself. That judgment adds more discomfort to the task. Now, it carries uncertainty and shame. The emotional load increases. Avoidance strengthens. So the cycle becomes task, discomfort, delay, relief, guilt, more discomfort, more delay. Breaking this loop rarely happens through force. Harsh pressure increases threat and avoidance. What changes behavior is reducing the emotional barrier to starting. One shift is understanding that action changes emotion more reliably than emotion changes action. People wait to feel motivated, but motivation often appears after movement. Starting creates momentum, clarity, and reduced uncertainty. The brain updates. This is manageable. Another shift is lowering perceived stakes. The nervous system reacts less to small actions than to vague large ones. Write report feels heavy. Open document and write one sentence feels safe. Progress begins where threat is lowest. Self-compassion matters more than people expect. When mistakes don't threaten identity, starting feels safer. You're allowed to be imperfect in motion. This reduces avoidance pressure. Self-compassion predicts persistence better than self-criticism. Environment shapes procrastination too. Tasks tied to distraction-rich contexts become harder to start. When your space signals entertainment or escape, initiation energy rises. Structuring environment reduces friction before willpower is needed. Energy state plays a role as well. Fatigue increases emotional reactivity and lowers initiation capacity. When tired, the brain exaggerates effort, cost, and underestimates ability. What feels impossible at night may feel neutral in the morning. Procrastination often reflects state, not character. There's also the paradox of caring. The more something matters, the more vulnerable you feel doing it. Creative work, career moves, personal goals, they expose judgment and uncertainty. Delay protects you from that exposure temporarily, but protection becomes stagnation if repeated. You rarely procrastinate trivial things, you delay meaningful ones. That pattern reveals the mechanism, avoidance of emotional weight, not effort. Another distinction is between resistance and refusal. Refusal is not wanting the goal. Resistance is wanting it but feeling blocked, approaching it. Most procrastination is resistance. And resistance softens with approach, not avoidance. When you begin despite discomfort, the predicted threat rarely matches reality. The task is clumsy but survivable, imperfect but real. The brain learns, action didn't damage me. That learning reduces future resistance. Small completions matter disproportionately. Each finished step provides evidence of capability and reduces uncertainty. Confidence is built from evidence, not intention. Action supplies evidence. It helps to see procrastination as regulation, not failure. Your mind is trying to regulate emotional load through avoidance. Understanding this removes moral judgment and allows better strategies. Smaller steps, clearer scope, gentler starts. Momentum compounds. Once engaged, continuing becomes easier than stopping. Starting is the highest barrier. You don't need full clarity to begin. Clarity often emerges during doing. Planning feels safer because it avoids exposure. Action feels risky because it creates reality. But reality is where progress exists. Over time, repeated starts reshape identity. You become someone who begins before ready, moves while uncertain, and tolerates imperfect output. That identity weakens procrastination at its root. And perhaps most important, procrastination doesn't mean you don't care. Often, it means you care deeply. Delay is not indifference, it's protection misapplied. When you see that clearly, self-judgment softens. And with less judgment, starting becomes lighter. So the next time you delay something meaningful, the question isn't, what's wrong with me? It's quieter. What feeling am I avoiding right now? And what is the smallest safe step I can take anyway? That's where movement begins.